Hello, hello, I'm Kads, and welcome back to the free-to-play review. Today's topic is going to be the anniversary deck of Fate, and you guys know that historically, I am not a huge fan of decks of Fate. I don't like the RNG locking my rewards because you don't know where the good stuff is unless you do everything in its entirety. Then that's the only way you can guarantee that you're going to get all of the rewards. So it's just an RNG fest, and I'm never truly a fan of it. However, every once in a while, they do combine them with certain beneficial or advantageous types of events, and this is most certainly one of those instances. So a quick breakdown for those who don't know how this works. There are 40 cards in the deck, and if we go to the info tab, you can see that there is a breakdown of the rarity of the cards: 15 common, 15 rare, and 10 epic. And the reason that those rarities matter is that if you happen to get 3 of a kind in a row, and it must be back to back to back, so 3 commons, for example, you have a chance to roll on these or on this table and get one of these rewards. If you get 3 rares back to back, then you have a chance to roll on this table for one of these rewards, so on and so forth, epics with this table. Now, typically the way I approach these from an RNG perspective is that you can basically ignore the prospect of getting a triple epic or a triple rare. It could happen, but the odds are just not in your favor. So most likely, assuming you're doing a substantial amount of cards in the deck of Fate, you're not really going to hit those, but every once in a while you might get lucky. But I would say, or I would try to opt more for the triple uncommons, just because it's just more likely. There's more of them in the deck, and just the odds are better, and the rewards aren't terrible. Getting the 100 gems, 300 energy would be pretty advantageous to get. Maybe some of the mortal soul stones as well. So in this particular instance, we do have an iteration where it's featuring a significant amount of gear. So we have a bunch of Divine Speed, Mythical, and Legendary, as well as Killstroke, which is like an improved crit damage set with crit damage and speed. Again, with Legendary and Mythical, all 6-star, which is really good. And then you have some high tier glyphs, I guess 5-star glyphs. You have some anniversary points. Noteworthy that if the Titan event points, if you do want to complete all the way out to the 5-star soul for Armand, you may have to participate in this, and you have no idea exactly where the points are, which is another reason it's kind of bad, RNG wise. And I think it's spread out across like 3 or 4 of the cards or so. I don't remember exactly. So it's not going to be all in one, but it's kind of good and bad depending on how you want to look at it. But nonetheless, it is featured as part of the deck. 100 gems, soul coins are pretty good. 2 legendary tomes is nice, immortal soul stones is nice, and mythical skill tome is nice. 1,000 energy would be amazing. And so the rewards are pretty decent overall. You could get some pretty good gear. You can get a speed upgrade for one of your fastest champions, or you can get a really good offset crit damage pieces. So depending on how they roll, mythical chaos ore could be good to use on some of these, depending on if there's a speed roll or a triple roll or a quad roll, or I guess quint roll if you want to think about it, for mythical pieces. So there's a lot of potential from the pieces, but most of them will probably be bad, just like running a dungeon, for example. But you never know. Sometimes they could be really, really good pieces. I think the last time we had one, I think for Kaj of the Rye, had her fragments as well as some gear pieces, and I actually got one of my fastest pieces ever out of that, believe it or not. So why is this particular deck of Fate a good opportunity for some people, depending on how you do it? Well, the base thing to acknowledge is that it does feature champion training, which, as I always say, is the most accessible form of content in the game. There's always going to be a champion that you're going to want a 6-star next, or 5-star, 6-star, whatever next. There's always going to be champions you're going to want to develop on your account, and everyone can run campaign. It's where you start, and it's where you're always going to be to level up your champions, or maybe in the tavern if you're further on in the game. But nonetheless, it's something that's accessible to everyone, and it's just not a bad time to be participating in that, just in general, again, to develop your account. But of course, the more predominant aspect or more prominent aspect of this is, of course, the shard element. So we have a good amount of points you can get for each of the shard types. Again, there are 40 cards, so if you wanted to do it entirely with sacreds, 2,000 a pop, it would take 20 sacreds. akin to like a guaranteed champion if there were one. There's not one in this case, but that's where it's a similar amount to that type of event. If you wanted to do it entirely with primals, it would take 50 primals. If you wanted to do it entirely with voids, it would be 115 voids. If you wanted to do it entirely with ancient shards, it would be 308. And if you wanted to crazy do it with mystery shards, it'd be 40,000. So that's not advisable. But nonetheless, you can mix and match the different shard types depending on how many you have if you wanted to max out the deck. And again, that could be advantageous depending on your situation. But that is not all. Just having it be a shard event is not really that exciting, and it's not even live yet. It does start tomorrow. But in the summon pool here, it's going to be a true 2x on Primal shards starting Friday, going all the way to Sunday. So we thought this weekend was going to be 2x Ancients, but they surprised us, and it's actually going to be a pure or a true 2x on Primals, meaning that you do have the boosted rates, or we will have the boosted rates on the epics, the legendaries, and the mythicals. So the mythicals will go to 1%, legendaries will go to 2%, and the epics will go to 32%. So very, very strong chances to get epics, decent odds to get legendaries, and probably, or I guess the best chance to get mythicals overall. Really quickly, I wanted to pop over to the spreadsheet because it wouldn't be a video without a spreadsheet lookup here. And just to mention that I do have in one of the tabs in my spreadsheet, which will be linked in the description box down below, the Deck of Fate calculator tab, we do have the breakdown of the champion training aspect. And we have two different rows here signifying how many points or coins or whatever you want to, the currency you'll get for doing each of these things. So making each chicken per capita just means per chicken. So if you're making a 2-star chicken from scratch, then it'll be 14 points. If you're making a 6-star champion from scratch, meaning you're just feeding 5 chickens into the level 50 champion, it would be 1,000 points, i.e. 1 card flip in this instance. And cumulative means we're just accounting for the fact that in order to make a 3-star chicken, you have to feed multiple 2-star chickens, etc., all the way down the line, all the way up to a 6-star champion, which requires all of the previous chickens being fed cumulatively into them overall. So if you were to make one 6-star champion, you'd have roughly 10,000 points, and that assumes that you are leveling them up to like level 50, 52-ish, which is where you want to stop if you want to level the rest of the way in Minotaur to get their masteries, if it's a champion you want masteries for. So if you want to think about it that way, you'd have to basically make 4 6-star champions from scratch over the course of the next 4 days if you want to do it entirely with champion training. I do not recommend doing that, but nonetheless, that is an option for someone who wants to just go ham on champion training. But of course, you can offset that with shards. So I would think of champion training as a way to fill the time of to use your energy over that course of the time, just so you can pull less shards overall. But if you want to do it entirely with shards, that's not the worst thing in the world, like we've already stated. So that is definitely a way to go about it. So what's my plan going to be for this one? And I have to say that I'm extremely excited. There is a progressive chance event going on, or starting tomorrow, going through the weekend, and it's featuring a bunch of poisoner champions, which some of you might already guess where this is going. But yes, Xavia is up for grabs, one of the poison exploders, as well as Bad L, in fairness. So 2 of my most wanted champions are up for grabs, and we have a whopping 43 primal shards on the account. And believe it or not, this feels like, it feels like a lot, and it is, but I've yet to pull one, because when they first launched these and they started doing 2x's, they were not doing a true 2x. And so I really wanted, if I'm going to pull my primals, I wanted to wait until there's at least 2x on mythicals. But then they started to flip flop and do there's only 2x on the mythicals, but not the legendaries. I was like, well, I kind of want all 3. I want higher chance at epics, because there's still some that I need specifically for the Lady Mikage fusion. There's still some legendaries that I'd like to have, and of course I would take a mythical if I were to get one. So I was waiting for a true 2x, and they did have one in the past, but it happened while I was out of town, and so I couldn't make a video pulling my primals for that. And so we've just been sitting in wait until the next one, which is going to be starting tomorrow. So in celebration of 1,000 subscribers on the channel, as well as being a YouTube partner now, my plan was to pull all of my primal shards over the weekend and just see what we can get. Obviously, that will not be sustainable. We won't have 40 primals every single time they do a true 2x, but maybe by the next time this comes around, maybe we'll have 10, 15, depending on how things go. So stay tuned for that video coming soon over the weekend once the event is live. It's going to be awesome and amazing. So with all that in mind, what is my formal recommendation? Like I said, use your energy for champion training if you have nothing else to do in the game. It's not the worst thing in the world. You'll offset some of the shards that you'd be pulling if you are going to be pulling shards during the event anyways, and it's just kind of a win-win. You might just get a couple of good pieces of divine speed, or from a couple of flips. So it's not the worst thing in the world just to work on developing your account by leveling up champions. But of course, the main focus will be, if you have primals, now is probably one of the best times to do it. You could get lucky on your first few flips and get the 1,000 energy, a mythical tome, legendary tome, etc., stuff like that. So you could just have a small investment and get a big return, or you could just just get a good return from your Primal shards. So it's definitely a great chance to at least consider pulling some of your Primal shards. And as I did mention, you could mix and match other shard types if you wanted to just add them to the mix in order to go for whatever champion you might want from the Progressive Chance event, if that is up your alley. And one last thing before we wrap it up here, I did finish out the Fire Knight Turn Attack tournament, so we do have our one free Prism shard here to open, and it's going to be over tomorrow. There is no champion chase this weekend, so there's no benefit to waiting another day or so, and it's going to be automatically summoned once the timer runs out here. So we might as well do it live here and see what we can get. I expect an epic for sure, and hopefully it's one of the Lady Mikage fusion epics, and it's not. It is an Ugo. Excellent champion, great for Hydra. I do already have one built up in a reflex set for that purpose. So this bull is not doing much for me at the moment, but nonetheless, Ugo is an amazing, awesome champion who I think a lot of people would love to have a copy of here if they haven't had one copy or they want duplicates for multiple Hydra teams. So major shout out to Ugo. All right, so that's going to do it for the free-to-play review of the Fortune Deck of Fate. Let me know in the comment section down below, what is your plan for the Super Primal weekend, as well as just your plan for the Deck of Fate in general. As always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below. And if you enjoyed the video, then be sure to subscribe to the channel for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching and have a good one.